professor from Rahman Medical College, and we have arranged this webinar. The topic of this webinar is using knowledge of physiology to achieve success. And we have certain brilliant speakers today. And our first speaker over here is our speaker who's going to start the session is Professor Dr. Rashid Mahmood. I will introduce him, and as we go along the webinar, ऐसे जैसे सारे speakers आते जाएंगे, I'll keep introducing them. The second speaker will be Professor Dr. Umar Ali Khan. So the first speaker here is Professor Rashid Mahmood. He is head of physiology department and charge of postgraduate medical education department, Rahman Medical College. And he's also finance secretary of Pakistan Physiological Society, as well as the chairman organizing committee of the forthcoming meeting or conference, international conference to be held in October. He is president of Pakistan Medical Association, KP chapter, and president of Peshawar chapter of Pakistan Academy of Family Physicians. He is author, co-author and reviewer of 5 books and 20 publications. So handing over the platform to Dr. Rashid Mahmood, who will start his presentation.
All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The topic of discussion today is using knowledge of physiology to achieve success. I relate the topic to 2 verses ayat from Holy Quran. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu iza laqitum fi'atan fasbutu wazkurullaha kaseeran la'allakum tuflihun. O believers, when you encounter a host in battle, stand firm and remember Allah much that you may be successful. Allah bizikrillahi tatma'innul qulub. Those who believe and whose hearts find comfort in the remembrance of Allah, surely in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find comfort. Now, the using of knowledge of physiology to achieve success. 2 keywords, physiology and success, we are well familiar, but just for introduction, the definition of physiology, there are many, which I like most is the science of the normal functions and phenomena of the living things. And the aim to study and teach physiology is to explain the physical and chemical factors that are responsible for the origin, development, and progression of life. Success is a broad term, and many different schools of thought define it according to different aspects of life. Success can be in career, it can be in personal life, it can be in education, it can be in health, and it can be in achieving a goal or goals. Now, for a success, we need healthy body and healthy mind. And physiology makes us understand the body-mind connection. Physiological state can directly impact our cognitive abilities, emotions, and overall performance. A healthy physiological body-mind connection can help optimize mental and physical well-being for success. Physical manifestations are well known in cases of abnormal physiology of mind through its connections and vice versa. Stress management and mindfulness. Stress, when it comes to the body, it initiates many reactions through many organs, through many hormones, through many chemical substances like cortisol, glucagon, vasopressin, renin, norepinephrine, epinephrine, and through many reactions, many functions in the body. Ultimately, if it is prolonged and if it is pathological, it may lead to stress. The stress may lead to disease. And coordinator between all this circle is the hypothalamus. Stress has many physiological effects on the body, and chronic stress can hinder success. Acute stress is useful to the body. introducing physiological techniques like deep breathing, meditation, and mindfulness to regulate stress responses, enhances focus, and promote a sense of calmness, ultimately leading to increased productivity and success. Energy management. It is essential to manage energy levels to sustain high performance. Understanding the body's energy systems, such as the role of proper nutrition, sleep, and regular exercise, can optimize physiological functioning, increase energy levels, and enhance productivity. Optimal sleep and rest. Physiological benefits of quality sleep and adequate rest are well documented. Physiology describes the importance of sleep in memory consolidation, cognitive functioning, improved productivity, focus, overall well-being, and overall success. Physical fitness and success. Physical fitness is closely linked to success in various areas of life. There are a number of physiological benefits of regular exercise, including improved cardiovascular health, increased energy levels, enhanced mood, and stress reduction. Neuroplasticity and learning. The concept of neuroplasticity, that is the brain's ability to reorganize and form neural connections, is well known. Understanding the physiological mechanisms behind learning and memory can help individuals develop effective study habits, optimize information retention, and achieve educational success. Emotional intelligence and success. Understanding physiology of emotions, both in oneself and others, can lead to better communication, relationship building, and overall success. One can have better understanding of the role of self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, and social skills in achieving success. Nutrition and brain health. Physiology explains importance of proper nutrition for brain health and cognitive functioning. For example, impact of essential nutrients such as omega-3 fatty acids, antioxidants, and vitamins on brain health and mental acuity. Knowledge of physiology tells that a balanced diet supports success in academic, professional, and personal pursuits. And last but not the least, resilience and adaptability. Physiology explains how stress response mechanisms and the body's ability to recover play a role in overcoming obstacles and achieving success. Application of physiology knowledge helps building resilience, such as positive reframing, seeking support, and practicing self-care. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rashid Mahmood. That was a very nice presentation, especially the aspect on exercise and nutrition that you highlighted. And hopefully we would try to inculcate that in our daily practices. So moving on to our next speaker, Professor Dr. Umar Ali Khan. He is a professor of physiology and pro-vice chancellor at ISRA University, Islamabad. He is co-founder of International Conference in Medical Education and Association for Excellence in Medical Education. And he has 29 years of teaching experience in physiology, both undergrad and postgrad. And he has 55 publications to his credit, alhamdulillah. And so over to you, Dr. Umar Ali Khan. And sir, Dr. Mukhtar, before I proceed, Dr. Mukhtar Zaman, welcome. You're here as well. He is our principal, Rahman Medical College.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks, Omema, and thanks, Oma, for obviously speaking, and I'm looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you very much. إن الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله ما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وفي الأرض آية للموقنين وفي أنفسكم أفلا تبصرون. This is Surah Zariyat, which is 51 number Surah of Quran, and I have recited ayat number 20 and 21. On the earth are signs for those of assured faith, and also in your own selves do you not see? और यकीन वालों के लिए तो जमीन में बहुत सी निशानियां हैं और खुद तुम्हारी जात में भी, तो क्या तुम देखते नहीं हो? So this is the beginning of physiology for us. So what I think and I believe, physiological thinking is equal to success. The thinking is the process which our Prophet ﷺ started in Ghar Hira before the Jibreel came in and brought the message from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So thinking is the key to success. Why physiology matters in medicine? Physiology as an experimental discipline emerged in North America during the 1820s as Beaumont studied the gastric secretions of French-Canadian trapper Alex Saint-Marin, who had a post-traumatic fistula that permitted easy access to the gastric contents. And then he studied about it, and that was the emergence of our experimental physiology. Now, you see, as a physiologist, when we see anesthesia is a classic example of integrative physiology experiments. When the patient is under, you can see the blood pressure, the pulse rate, the oxygen, carbon dioxide, ECG on a monitor, and it is being monitored throughout the surgical process until the patient is under. Even if you see it simply measuring a few key physiological markers, it is possible to gain insight into the pathophysiology of an individual patient. Doing serum electrolytes, doing creatinine, the clinicians can very well understand, and being doctors, we understand, we know the whole story going inside. And why physiology matters more than ever in medicine? Because physiology is also the heart of such common tests as the electrocardiogram, blood pressure measuring, exercise tolerance test, renal function test, pulmonary function test, liver function test, and many more. Then if you see the standard feedback control diagram of blood pressure, regulation is basis for therapeutic targets for treating blood pressure. Just have a look here. Beginning from here to here, the clinician knows I need to give vasodilator, I need to act here by drugs, I need to act here, and this is the therapeutic control of blood pressure. But if somebody is having a good grasp on the physiology, he can treat the blood pressure very easily. Physiology as an experimental discipline has been involved in both an intellectual and applied serve and volley with clinical medicine. It is always volleying between physiology and medicine, and the things keep on evolving. Physiology to genes and omics, proteomics, genomics, and whatever. In 1989, idea of gene therapy emerged. Sorry? Can I continue? Shall I continue?
Yes sir, please continue. वो नए लोग admit हुए थे तो उनका mic unmute होता है. So
okay. In 1989, idea of gene therapy emerged. The gene is broken, fixed, and the gene and cure the patient. This was the idea. Physiology was put onto the back burner, and these ideas came into that gene therapy would be available to fix the genes, restore function, and cure affected individuals. And that was also termed as biological orthopedic surgery. But then physiology was still at the driving force. Discovery of endothelial-derived relaxing factor, EDRF, and the subsequent identification of nitric oxide as the main EDRF. The observations that flowed from the EDRF story led to an explosion of new knowledge, including identification of new family of gas-based biological signaling pathways, new ideas about the role of the vascular endothelium in health and disease, new pathophysiological explanations for a host of syndromes, and new treatments for a number of diseases, including erectile dysfunction and pulmonary hypertension. Physiology and medicine. As in Quran in Surah Anbiya, ayat number 30, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, one part of it I'm reciting, every living thing is made from water. So this was the basically physiological thinking which we get from Quran Pak as well, because principles of physiological regulation of fluid and electrolyte balance, when they are appropriately applied, they were able to prevent a lot of diarrheal deaths, especially neonates, infants, and adults. It is simple glucose transfers along with sodium chloride led to that when they make an ORS, in sodium chloride, they also add glucose so that it is co-transported and a lot of diarrheal deaths are prevented. Premature birth was equal to death. But after the discovery of surfactant and surfactant therapy, now premature birth is a normal process. Alhamdulillah. So, and similarly, balance between oxygen supply and demand by the heart. When the physiologist told about the oxygen supply and demand by the heart, so that led to effective mechanical therapy, surgery, angioplasties, and stentings. Then a time came that use of beta blockers and vasodilator therapy in the treatment of congestive heart failure was thought to be contraindicated. But when the physiologist told that what is the level and why it is important, so these days, beta blockers and vasodilator therapy is not contraindicated. Acute respiratory distress syndrome. Whenever there was acute respiratory distress syndrome, in adults especially, the mechanical ventilation led to damage of lungs. But when the physiologist told that how much oxygen is required, and now this is not a problematic thing because they don't push so much air and they prevent damage to the lungs. Then exercise physiology. Exercise physiology has changed the dynamics of cardiovascular disease, not only in treatment, but also in prevention and cure. Similarly, the exercise physiology and diabetes mellitus. I was just a few days back looking at one program by BBC Earth on this diabetes mellitus type 2. And they showed that there was a significant change in the habits by doing exercise, and that led to their diabetes 2 was controlled. So this is the physiology of exercise physiology, which has got a dramatic change in medical field. Next comment. So physiological thinking is the future of medicine. As in case of Alzheimer's disease, which we thought it is deposition of amyloid, and now they say it is the microvasculature of brain which is at risk. And if we can, physiologists can talk about it and discuss, it is just like a failure, brain failure, like it was heart failure, renal failure, or liver failure. So it is a brain failure in Alzheimer's. So this can be a very good thing which we can physiologists add. And aging, it is simply loss of muscle mass. And it is called sarcopenia. And if those people who exercise in young age, and when they develop age due to aging process and they start exercise, their aging process, is slowed down. Obesity becoming an epidemic. Now there is a glycogen-like protein which acts as an agonist for secretion of insulin. It is semaglutide. In a recent study in US, they have shown that use of semaglutide in obese adolescents and young adults, there was reduction of 16% of BMI in just over a year. So this is again physiology. And then diabetes 2 mellitus type 2 and empagliflozin, which acts on SGLT2 receptors on proximal tubule and increases the secretion of glucose from there, and reabsorption is inhibited. And it decreases, blood glucose level, bring them to normal very quickly. Then fasting, especially intermittent fasting. Lot of work has been done when they studied fasting. Alhamdulillah, in Islam, we have to fast for a month and then for more than 12 hours. And then we have to fast as per Rasulullah's ahkamat, that we have to may fast on, Mondays and Thursdays. And today, as a Yom Arafah, most of the people are fasting because Rasulullah said that those who are not in Arafah may fast. So this intermittent fasting has got such a dramatic effect on the all hormonal balances that, it is the physiological thinking which is making the difference. So it is said that new clinical success dependent on physiology emerge in the future. So to summarize, in every case, an integrative physiological narrative aided the process either by providing the pathway to a solution or in the generation of ideas and questions, including counter-initiative questions. These contributions were then amplified by physicians who had a solid understanding of physiology and thus were intellectually ready to integrate new ideas into their own pathophysiological conceptual models. So being teachers in physiology and being medics, what we need to do in first year and second year, that we have to make students not only understand physiology, but to make their thinking physiological. And this, in McGill, probably, I think if I'm not wrong, there is a module in final year when they're in exit exam, back to basic, where anatomy, physiology, biochemistry is taught. And I think if we can practice all over Pakistan this practice, so we can have very good physicians. Thank you very much. These are my references. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Umar Ali Khan. That was again a brilliant speech, and especially your analogies that you derived from the past and the history of physiology and how all this knowledge can affect us and our life. That was very great. And so I just want to tell everyone that we'll have the question and answer sessions in the end. And moving on, basically the third speaker, I don't think she is here yet. Dr. Erin, are you here? I think she's not here yet. So moving on to Professor Samina Malik, who is head of physiology department, University College of Medicine and Dentistry, University of Lahore. She has presented research and teaching workshops on platforms such as AACR, WCR, ASEP, PPS, SAP, IUPS, and many others. And she is also presented in Dundee University and AEME. She has received Best Oral Presentation Award at the IMEC 2022 and Best Online Teacher Award in 2020. She has also received Phenomenal Women Performance Award and has currently 31 publications and 526 citations. So moving on to Professor Dr. Samina Malik. Ma'am, please take over.
Thank you so much, Umaima. And I'm highly grateful to be invited on this prestigious forum on which very senior colleagues are present, including Professor Umar Ali Khan and Professor Rashid Mahmood, and my very enthusiastic colleague, Dr. Umair. And not only them, but there are also students present, and they also wish to join Pakistan Physiological Society, and I was chatting with them. So what is the expected outcome of this talk? Nothing more than this much, the dream of poet philosopher Allama Iqbal and the vision of my mentor, Professor Mushtaq Ahmed. जवानों को मेरी आहे सहर दे, फिर इन शाहीन बच्चों को बाल ओ पर दे, खुदाया आरजू मेरी यही है, मेरा नूरे बसीरत आम कर दे, आमीन. So this Noor-e Basirat is gifted to me through Iqbal and through Professor Mushtaq. So starting from the origin, not origin of species, but origin of us when we were born. We were born with a positive feedback, and we all know the interplay of different hormones and different mechanisms and the stretch with the help of which there was this positive feedback coming. So once we are born, we understand, and we are born again to further understand once we become students of physiology that पहुंचा जो आपको खुद को तो पहुंचा मैं खुदा के तईं मालूम अब हुआ कि बहुत मैं भी दूर था क्योंकि वही तो है जो निज़ामे हस्ती चला रहा है. So all the positive feedbacks and the negative feedbacks, which are the regulatory mechanisms and even adaptive control. So these regulatory mechanisms that students start learning in physiology when they become freshmen, they will understand in a deeper perspective that everything that is happening positive or everything that is happening negative in their life, it is happening for a good cause. So let's embrace the cause. Let's accept the reason. One of the famous laws in physiology that is also followed by this nerve impulse, single nerve impulse, it is all or none law. Even your heart follows the all or none law. And the purpose of this all or none law, as taught to me by Professor Mushtaq Ahmed, is that there should be no half-hearted business, because ishq hota hai to hota hai ya hota hi nahi. So there's nothing in between. So if you see, the threshold is whether the threshold is smaller. As you can see over here, the threshold is smaller, and the threshold eventually is increased, and threshold is further, mean to say, if the stimulus is threshold and its intensity is gradually increased, still there is complete response. And if the stimulus is sub-threshold, then there is no response at all. So it shows that we need to treat people with empathy, wholeheartedly, not with sympathy. It means that lukewarm is no good. It means that we should be passionate about our goals, and we should not have dreams, but we should have aims. So here you see a beautiful mechanism revealed in renal physiology, that is the U-shaped arrangement of vasa recta to conserve energy. And you can see another U in case of renal physiology in the loop of Henle. So whether it is the countercurrent multiplier mechanism or whether it is the countercurrent exchange mechanism in vasa recta, what nature is going to tell you. So nature is telling you a lesson for conservation of energy. That is, ho kanat jo zindagi ka asool tang dasti faragh dasti hai. So less is more. So we need to have this minimalistic approach in life. इसी तरह when time comes in our life in certain relationships that we cannot just bring them to the end, then we can always go for a bend. Like न हो मुमकिन जिस अफसाने को अंजाम तक लाना उसे खूबसूरत मोड़ देकर छोड़ना अच्छा. So you can see the खूबसूरत मोड़ being taught to us in the U-shaped arrangement. And we always expect happy ending. So if the happiness has not reached you, then it is not the end, rather it is a bend. Likewise, when we die, sometimes we think that the person is dead and gone, but मौत को समझे हैं गाफिल इख्तिताम जिंदगी है ये शाम जिंदगी सुबह दवाम जिंदगी. So if you look at the prefrontal cortex, which is situated in front of our head, right under the forehead, so over here in this area, so you can see that prefrontal cortex is ahead of all the motor areas, and even the motor areas ahead of all the sensory areas. So what you can see is that this prefrontal cortex is the area where the instincts are, where we develop the intentions basically. So and we translate the word intention into the word niyat. So as it is said that as you sow, so shall you reap. So we need to have a positive intention, and automatically the action will be qualified as a good action. And we need to respect this quality because we will be measured on a qualitative balance and not on a quantitative balance. So if you are, say, for this Eid al-Azha, if anybody is offering 20 buffaloes for sacrifice, and another person is just offering a very small goat, then it does not depend on the quantity of the sacrifice, but it will only depend upon the quality, that how purely it is meant for Allah and how much it is meant for show off. So one should not be judgmental because the knowledge in the prefrontal cortex, the knowledge about the intention of somebody's action, Allah has not given it to others, but He has kept it to Himself. So when God Himself does not judge a person until the end of his days, then why should you and I? So we should think before we speak and think before you leap. Why? Because the sensory areas are behind and the motor areas are in front. So that the sensory areas, they are controlling the motor areas. So we should check our thoughts because the thoughts, they become our words. And we should check our words because our words, they will become our actions. And the actions, they will become our destiny. So now you see, have a look at CNS. You know the central nervous system, it starts from the ascending tracts. This is dorsal column and this is the spinothalamic pathway. So निहाल इस गुलिस्तान में जितने बढ़े हैं, निहाल the plants, हमेशा वो नीचे से ऊपर चढ़े हैं. So you need to understand the system of hierarchy for discipline. And you should wait for your turn to become a senior to be respected equally as the seniors are respected because they have spent their lives into the profession and they are the people who deserve all the respect better than us. So here you see action potential and you see that there is an ascending limb of action potential and then there is a descending limb of action potential. It even goes under the ground and then again tries to rise. So you see that what nature is telling us through this spike potential, कि हर अरूज को ज़वाल है, that every rise is followed by a fall, except Almighty who is stationary, who is constant. Because ना था कुछ तो खुदा था, कुछ ना होता तो खुदा होता, डबोया मुझको होने ने, ना होता मैं तो क्या होता. So aging, you see, comes after puberty. And the only beauty that will remain will be that of your soul. So it will come into your smile. So it will come on your face. So let's polish our soul rather than polishing the skin. Because sabat ek taghayyur ko hai zamane mein. Now, getting up from resurrection is quite like getting up from hyperpolarization to another action potential. So it requires a lot of effort. So what we need to do is to do our best during our stay on the ground, on this ground. So we need to do our best, play our role, and play it fairly. Because once we will be resurrected in the hereafter, and we will earn what we have, we will enjoy what we have earned. Remember to respect the person because rise and fall will take place in this world. So remember to respect the person, not the chair. So even when the chair is gone, you will still continue to respect that person, and that would be the real respect. So avail the opportunity of any opportunity that nature will hand over to you. And you have to avail that opportunity with speed because nature likes space. So look at the sodium channels. All the voltage gated fast sodium channels, they open up here at minus 65 millivolts. And look at potassium, which will slowly open and slowly close. So sodium takes the lead. Why? Because it avails the opportunity and it approaches it with a pace. So every person has his own threshold for reaction, just like different tissues have their own threshold. So we should remain stable by having sufficient amount of calcium in our body, in our blood, because otherwise there can be repeated firing and there can be tetanization. So stability and integrity in character is also very important. So if you look here, the brain, stores something more about neurophysiology. The brain stores information and the brain deletes it and the brain restores it. Otherwise, it will go burst. So remember that even the old people can learn at any time, because it is like use it or lose it when we talk about the neurons. And under the conscious mind is your subconscious mind, which stores memory and emotion. And you must have read in Guyton, learning along with emotions and an association between these things in the hypothalamus. So you know that if you bring about emotions into your classroom, then the students are never going to forget that teaching and learning session. So they will say, involve me and I will never forget, just like we do metaphoric role play or doctor-patient role play. It touches at their emotional level. So what we need to learn from this for life, for success in life, is that delete the information that is hazardous for you, that is stopping you from success or progress. So forgive and forget and move on. If you will put garbage in your mind by talking garbage, by smelling garbage, by whispering garbage, then what you get is garbage. So it's garbage in, garbage out. So talk positive to your brain. Say to your brain, I can, and you will. And you have to delete all the non-productive information. You have filters, you have 2 ears. Select what you need to listen and select what you do not need to listen. And select what you need to ignore. Because औरों से तो गिरानी यक लख्त उठ गई थी, ए दर्द अपने दिल के गरबार हैं तो हम हैं. Otherwise, you will never be able to forgive yourself for doing this. So you know that that memory does not go to negative memory or habituation, which has some application. So whenever you teach and learn, you need to associate the new information with certain application. Clinical information is better learned as compared to the basic information, which is not associated with any clinical phenomenon. So we need to think about it while teaching and learning. Then there is compartmentalization. When we look at the cells, so inside the cell, there are compartments and there are packets that store different types of material for their specific function and to provide distinct microenvironment inside the cell. But when it comes to tissues that are composed of cells and that are specialized cells for a particular system, particular function, they are the specialized people and they have some common interests. So we can call them a team. And then they can work into action in different organs and they facilitate this organism. So remember that there is a fine line of balance between acceptance of other person as your own and between maintaining a fine distance from others so that you do not get hurt. And it is best mentioned or best revealed in this verse, हो लाख गैरों का गैर कोई ना समझना उसको गैर हरगिज, जो अपना साया भी हो तो उसको तसव्वुर अपना ना कीजिएगा. So you need to understand compartmentalization and this teamwork into division of labor and delegation. So if a doctor will keep everything to himself and will not refer to the other doctor, then the patient is going to go worse. The disease is going to go worse. Likewise, we need to develop interpersonal skills, just like these tissues and cells they develop, and interdisciplinary approach, because we cannot be the king of all. We can be a jack of all, but we cannot be the king of all. So it is very important to understand the importance of referral, of interpersonal skills and interdisciplinary approach that your own body is teaching you. You know that there are 4 lines of defense in your blood. So what is it telling you? That first things first. Remember to put first things first in life and first things first in physiology, as Professor Mushtaq Ahmed used to say. So what you need to do is to sleep first, sleep early, so that you have a good release of this juvenile hormone with full of immunity boost, melatonin. And you need to prioritize your goals, your short-term goals as well as your long-term goals. And you need to befriend yourself first in order to avoid autoimmunity. So you need to understand the difference between self and non-self, which is the basis of autoimmunity taught in physiology, because apne hi girate hain nashe man pe bijliyan. So strengthen your defense mechanisms, and those defense mechanisms can be can come through these three monkeys who but have later on learned in their life that I will see no evil, and I will hear no evil, and I will speak no evil. So these are the bad influences from which we need to seek some distance. And we need to process the information and then respond so that the response is always positive. So then we have this knee-jerk reaction, and in English literature, the knee-jerk reaction has a different meaning. That is, we should not be impulsive. And you already know that this exaggerated kind of knee-jerk reaction, it is seen in case of upper motor neuron lesion. So your even upper motor neuron is desired by the nature to control your reflexes. So we need to train our reflexes, means when to respond and when to ignore in response to any stimulus that we receive, whether through ears or through hammer. So one kind of response that is taught by the poetry is ho mehfile yara to baresham ki tarah narm, bazme hako batil ho to faulad hai momin. So you need to choose your battles. So in the end, I would like to say that we need to use all our senses, whether they are special senses or they are somatic senses, to enjoy life by being mindful of the presence of Allah. Like Iqbal said, khol aankh, zami dekh, falak dekh, fiza dekh, mashrik se ubharte hue suraj ko zara dekh. So because you know that जो दिन को रात और रात को दिन बना रहा है वही खुदा है. It is God who is changing night into day and day into night. So, and lastly, there is a beautiful mechanism in physiology called as stress relaxation. As you know, the smooth muscle is gifted with stress relaxation, whether it is in stomach or it is in bladder or it is in rectum. So it is maintaining so many reflexes for us and managing these reflexes, especially when you are on a journey and you are unable to handle it otherwise. So there are so many blessings a physiologist is exposed to, and then a physiologist is bound to believe that fabi ayye alai rabbikuma tukazziban, tum apne parwardigar ki kaun kaun si nemat ko jhutlaoge, which of the blessings of your God Almighty you will deny. So thank you very much for enabling me and for bestowing this opportunity to pay thanks to my mentor, Professor Mushtaq Ahmed, may his soul rest in peace, who blended this physiology with philosophy of success. And this is how we learned something, and whatever we learned is a token of thanks to him. And may me and all my students be his Sadqa Jariya. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Samina. That was a brilliant presentation, especially all the ashar in the middle and all the links that you developed between the physiological processes and our daily life and the success that you think is what we need to achieve. So moving on to our next speaker, Dr. Erin Bruce from USA is here, and she is a PhD and postdoc in the Department of Physiology and Aging, College of Medicine, University of Florida, USA. She is holder of the New Investigator Award from American Physiological Society and an Exemplary Teacher Award from the University of Florida. She has had half a decade of teaching experience and 15 publications to her name. So, Dr. Erin, will you please share your screen?
Yes, I'm sharing now. Yes, thank you so much for the invitation. So sorry I'm late. My calendar did not correctly transfer the time change. So thank you for the call. So I'm going to talk to you about finding your homeostasis. And as you know, in physiology, homeostasis is kind of one of the backbone core principles of physiology, the point of stability or equilibrium between interdependent and physiological variables. So now I want you to think of a period in your life when you felt the most stable. Just close your eyes, take a deep breath, and think back when you felt the most at peace, the strongest in your life, maybe the happiest in your life, whatever point in your life when you felt perhaps you were the most stable. Maybe it was when you were a child, maybe it's now, maybe you haven't reached it yet, but if you haven't felt a stable period in your life, maybe think, what would that be like for you? What is your idea of stability, and what is the goal that you want to make to achieve that stability? Okay, so I would say my most stable point is now. I feel most stable in my journey right now. So how did I reach that point? So first, I had a goal that I would graduate Louisiana State University in a degree with biology and become a high school science teacher in my home city of Houston. I wanted to go to college. I did well in science in high school, and I wanted to take that and go back home and teach high school. But I had a major life event at the end of college. I got married, and my husband did not want to move to Houston. And so we moved instead to a different city, Gainesville, Florida. And I didn't get hired as a teacher. So I had to find a job, and I wanted to find one using my degree. And my husband encouraged me to apply just for any technician position at the University of Florida, just to get my foot in the door, have some kind of job where I'm using my degree. So that led me to earning my PhD. And after that goal of earning my PhD, I was like, okay, I'm going to earn my PhD. I'm going to get a postdoc at a new institution. This is what you need to do to be successful. But then I had another major life event. I had my first child. And I don't know if many of you, I'm not sure of the healthcare in Pakistan, but in the United States, it's difficult to have a child if you don't have very good health insurance. And my husband had very good health insurance. So we didn't want to move at the time when I needed medical care for having my first child. So we couldn't move. So I was able to get a postdoc here at University of Florida. So it was a stressful time, but a happy time staying at University of Florida. So, okay, fine. We'll move on past that major life event. We'll adjust. I'll complete my postdoc here at University of Florida. I will gain a tenure track faculty position somewhere else, and that will be where I will find my stability and my success. But then I had another major life event. I had a second child, and the same issues as before came up, and that I didn't have the insurance stability to move to another state again. So I had to stay at the University of Florida. And luckily, my advisor at the time for my training grant knew I wanted to be a teacher. I still had that goal that no matter what I did in my tenure track position, I wanted to use it to teach. And he offered me this lecturer position, which I'm very, very grateful for. Another thing that happened after my second child that I didn't know was happening at the time was I had undiagnosed postnatal depression. So this was all happening, I mean, really not so long ago. My youngest child is now 6. So it was a big time of upheaval in my life. But I got hired as this tenure track faculty position. My postdoc research suffered. I was overwhelmed by work because I was working in the research lab and as a lecturer full-time in both, which is not possible, especially when you're a new mother who is unknowingly suffering from depression. But after a while, I sought help. I lost my postdoc position and focused mostly on teaching, actually 100% teaching full-time. My mother came from Houston to Florida to help with the second child, so I had more help at home. And I started going to counseling and receiving treatment for my my postnatal depression. So all of these things were happening, and that sort of set me up to reevaluate what I had to do with my life. And now I have achieved a success, in my opinion, which is not only being a good teacher for my students, but having that pathway of education acknowledged by my college as an exemplary teacher. And I have been exemplary teacher now for 4 years. So the only time I did not achieve that goal was my very first year, which I absolutely consider a success. And I feel very stable now. I have help in my home life. I have help in my work life. I'm productive there. And so I want you to consider this when you're moving forward, that you have what you need to find your stability, find your homeostasis. So how can you reach this? Here's how our body responds and finds homeostasis. We have a stimulus. This stimulus is sensed either by receptors in our body, and then that information travels to the control center, which is usually your brain. The control center sends a signal to your effector, and then you have a response. So this response can either be negative, so you have negative feedback to turn off the stimulus, or you have a positive feedback that might influence the stimulus and continue. Now, excuse me. Every day in our life, we have stimuli. Maybe you have some familial responsibilities. Perhaps you're a caretaker for your an elderly family member. Maybe you have children, and those familial responsibilities are always in the back of our mind, no matter what we're doing. This also ties into financial responsibilities. We need to make sure that our family is cared for. We need to make sure they have a roof over their head, utilities are paid, food on the table. And then with those financial responsibilities, we need to make sure that we are covering our work responsibilities so that we have this stable career position so that we can provide for our families. And all of these stimuli our brain is dealing with every single day, and we have a physiological response to them. If we have stress in any one of these areas, that physiological response is going to manifest potentially as a fight or flight, or increase in cortisol through our HPA axis. So there is another term in physiology that I'd like to mention. If you have that, is allostasis. So homeostasis is the point at which your body is trying to get equilibrium and become stable. And allostasis is the physiological and behavioral adaptations to these stimuli. And you have environmental stressors that we can handle with our individual differences, like our genetics and our personal experience, our epigenetics. And we also have how our body responds to major life events, what we have for perceived stress, And then you can also have chronic stress or trauma, and these will trigger your fight or flight response, as I mentioned earlier. And you might adjust to this chronic stress with some changes in your personal behavior, how you eat, ways that you are speaking, maybe you're yelling all the time because you're stressed, or if you exercise to try to release some of that extra tension that the chronic stress or the trauma is creating in your body. And all of these adaptations to stimuli, this is your allostasis. When you start losing your ability to normally adapt, so if you'll look here, there is two lines, one line coming up and down, which is in red, and another line that sort of comes up after a stimulus, and then it starts to trail off. And this is what you call your normal adaptation, where if you're having a repeated stressor over time, normally your body's like, okay, I've seen this before. I don't need to stress so much. I've made it out of this situation. It's not as bad as it was or as I think it is. But if you lose this adaptation like you would in the red, you might have this prolonged response where you have no recovery, or you may have an inadequate response over time. So you might have issues of an allostatic load where you're getting this stress and then you have another small stressor, maybe something small like you forgot, let's just say you forgot to read something and read something for your work. You have other deadlines. You know that this is not going to really affect your work, but you overly compensate and get really, really stressed about it and maybe have a panic attack. So this would be a super physiological response to a very minor stressor, whereas every day you're dealing with the chronic stress of family care and childcare. And so you want to do something in your life. You want to be able to adapt to these chronic stressors so that when you have another mild stress attack, you don't get this increased response. So what we need to do is listen to our feedback. If you are having anxiety, or you're feeling bored at work, or you have loss of sleep, or you're starting to develop pathophysiologies, so something like obesity, maybe you're not eating well because you're working too much, or maybe you have high blood pressure because you're feeling stress all the time, and these are some negative feedbacks that you're starting to feel physiologically in your body or mentally with the boredom. So what you need to do is find the stimulus. Where is this negative feedback originating from? Perhaps it's caretaker burden, or you're understimulated at work or at home, or maybe you have an overwhelming workload, or maybe it's a combination of things. And you need to find in which specific area of your life the stress is originating from. And then you need to modify your situation. Ask for help when you can. In my example, I asked my mother for help with the children, and luckily she was able to come and help. Find a new challenge. If you're bored at work and you're feeling understimulated, that can lead to feelings of unwell. So you need to find a new challenge. If it's not work, then maybe you find a new challenge at home. And another thing, if you're feeling overwhelmed, make sure to take a break from your job, or maybe you need to find a better fit for your life. And it's okay to change careers. It's never too late if you're feeling this way. So how do I maintain my homeostasis? What are my allostatic behaviors? So I mentioned a few earlier. So I have my family has come, my mother has come to help. And that also gives me a bit of a burden, that I have a caretaker burden as well sometimes. But overall, the burden of family care has lessened for me because I was able to ask for help. So I want to stress that family time is very important to me. And so I make sure to set aside at least 15 minutes a day for personal family interactions, quality family time where I'm really understanding what do my children need from me? What does my husband need from me? And what does my mother need from me? And what do I need from them? We have these family meetings where we all talk and say what we are happy with each other and what do we need from each other. So we are all aware of each other's needs and each other's happiness. And so we use that to support one another. Always make sure you have a mental health assessment. I have a continued contact with my mental health counselor, despite having successfully treated my depression. I see my mental health counselor at least once a month, just to have a little check-in and say, yeah, I'm still doing okay, or actually this area of my life has gotten a little low, I need a boost. And so she's a bit of an outside feedback for me, whether it's a negative or a positive feedback. She helps me settle down and listen to myself and my body and say, you know, I'm doing good. I feel I'm at homeostasis. Or no, actually, I think this area of my life, it's becoming stressful again and I need to modify. And she's a little outside check for me. I make sure that in my daily work life, I create to-do lists and I set timers specifically for my priorities so that I can have a daily work productivity. And that makes me feel successful in my job. I also reach to constantly improve the courses that I teach. This is a personal goal that I have, and I feel this is how I maintain that exemplary teaching status. If I am constantly looking in the literature and going to workshops through the University of Florida or the American Physiological Society, we have a lot of tools around us to help us become better educators. And in your position, you would have better tools in whatever job. Seek the help around you, because our mentors want us to succeed and they will give us the tools. And now currently my goal is to grow my education research. And I'm doing this through conferences and networking, which is where I met Umaima, which I'm so happy for. So how should you find your success? You should first define your homeostasis. Think back to when you felt most stable in your life. And if you don't feel you've had a time in your life where you felt most stable yet, you should think of what that looks like for you. Excuse me. And next, reduce your allostatic load. Whatever you can do, listen to your feedback loops and find ways to modify your behavior so you can adapt to your stressors and reduce your allostatic load. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Erin. That was a lovely presentation, and we're so much thankful to you that you came here, although it's 4:30 or 5 a.m. over there in US. So you had to wake up very early for this webinar. So that was a lovely presentation that you shared regarding your success and your life story. And we'll come to the question and answer session in the end. Moving on to our next presenter, Dr. Umair Wadood, who is assistant professor and head of department at Rahman College of Dentistry. He has been best-selling author of a neurophysiology book, and he is an entrepreneur and founder of Carbon Bespoke, an automotive design firm, as well as Umair Wadood Private Limited, a successful digital solutions platform. He has a range of skills and achievements, including medicine, photography, filmmaking, writing, and entrepreneurship. So over to you, Dr. Umair. Can you please screen?
Thank you, Dr. Umaima, for inviting me to this webinar. It's indeed a pleasure and an honor to be sitting with such distinguished guests and participants as well. So what I wanted to speak about was my life and the journey I've been through, and how I achieved success, and what the experiences taught me. So it's basically based on how my mother bridged my profession to my passion, and the three lessons that it taught me. So I just want to take everyone back in time to one of the evenings of 2005, when I was a second year FSC student and was at a dinner table with my family when my mother asked me this dreadful question, "Aage ka kya socha hai?" like every household, this question is asked from everyone. And I said, National College of Arts is one of the finest art schools in the country, and I hope I get enrolled there to study film and photography. To this, my mother said, you have to become a doctor, whether you like it or not. So we obviously had a difference of opinion, as I wanted to be a photographer and she wanted to be a doctor. We had a long debate on this for a week or two, but finally she was able to convince me, and we agreed that when I'm done with MBBS, I'll do whatever I want to. Now, 5 years later, I graduated as a doctor, and she gladly bought me a camera. So now the question is, was my mother wrong? Did I really waste 5 years in medicine as I later became an award-winning photographer without even going to an art school? Well, the answer is no. She was always right. You see, there is absolutely no one in this world who knows you more than your own mother. She knew me and always wanted me to pursue photography. There is no doubt about that. It's just that she didn't tell me and wanted me to learn through my own experiences. She knew my capacity and my weaknesses and had the wisdom that I'll be lost if I don't listen to her. So instead of sending me to an art school, she sent me to medical school where I studied anatomy in first year. So understanding of human anatomy shaped my vision to see souls instead of faces. I wasn't aware of this till recently, but when I look back to the time I started photography, I subconsciously started taking pictures of souls instead of bodies. Now, this was the first lesson medicine taught me. Then later in October 2010, I was at the start of giving my final professional examination. I was confused and terrified. We've all been through that phase. It's very tough, as we had 9 papers and 7 back-to-back vivas, which is extremely tough. It checked our nerves, our character, and consistency under pressure. But before the start of my first paper, I couldn't sleep because of anxiety. My mother came to my room and gave me a piece of advice that I'd hold on to forever. She said, son, one should not be afraid of failure, but should be afraid of not trying. Fail as much as you want to, but do not tell me that you didn't try. And to be really honest, I failed 1,000 times in photography before my images could actually start speaking. Being consistent under pressure of failure is the key to success. And this was the second lesson medicine taught me. A year later, in 2011, I was a senior house officer in the orthopedics department, and a lot of our fellow Pashtuns were brought to the OT, who were badly injured in a bomb blast at the Karkhano market. And I asked my mother when I came back home, devastated and broken, that why are we labeled as terrorists when we ourselves are the victims? She calmly replied, son, find a way and change the narrative. A week later, I proposed to do a photographic exhibition highlighting the stereotyping of Pathans by the West. It was called Pashtuns, the real versus surreal. My mother helped me draft my first exhibition that was held in Islamabad, and it became so successful that it got national as well as international media coverage and was also used in foreign universities for their study projects. So, somewhat the narrative did change. And this was the third and most important lesson that medicine taught me about photography. And it's called compassion. You see, as doctors, we serve, we treat, and we help other people. Compassion becomes a part of our personality if we let it grow. I had compassion for the victims of the bomb blast, which made me do an exhibition to fight the stereotyping of my people. Today, looking back at how life shaped me, these 3 lessons were very important and very hard to learn, but they gave me a way forward. They gave me a purpose in life, and that is to serve humanity. I will be forever indebted to this noble profession and to my mother for what she taught me and taught me well. Well, I'm a product well crafted by my mother. So I always tell everyone, always chase your dreams. And while doing so, you will fall and you will fall bad. But that is how we learn. Don't ever let the pressure of failure stop you. You will achieve big. You will make a name and you will change the world. Just remember, if you really want it, you will find a way. If not, you will find an excuse. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Dr. Umair. That was a really nice speech. And from your life experiences and how you developed as a person. And now the house is open to questions. So any questions, everyone, to all our 5 renowned speakers. So anyone who has a question can ask. Go ahead, you can unmute your mic and you can ask. Okay, so any of the speakers, you want to ask anything from each other? Are you able to unmute your mic? Is it? I'm not
Thank you
sure.
very much, Dr. Mema. We can hear you. I'm Dr.
Recording in
Mema.
progress.
So I think if, it's 10 minutes more than the time, if we can disengage, if possible.
Oh, yeah, sure. Thank you everyone for today's session. We enjoyed a lot. All the 5 presentations were brilliant. And thank you so much to Professor Umar Ali Khan, Professor Rashid Mahmood, Professor Samina Malik, Dr. Erin, and Dr. Umair Wadood for joining us for presenting their talk. And we really enjoyed and we really learned a lot from it.
Omema, just a minute. You should thank yourself as well. You did, you kept us on toes. And I have to ask Rashid Mahmood to please help me to send my presentation a bit late. We thank you all.
Thank you so much, sir. That's very kind of you. And I would like to end this webinar session. And thank you all for joining. Thank you so much.
A big hand for Omema.
Thank you
Okay,
very much. Excellent, excellent. Well done.
Well
Great.
done. Keep it up. And thank you for introducing us to Bruce family.
thank you.
I enjoyed all the presentations. Keep it up. Thank you very much. The positive physiologists.
Yes,
Thank you.
inshallah.
Okay, thank you.
So much. Thank you.
Yeah.